Welcome from the Station of Light, Keepers of Light, and I call you that because you are just that. Keepers of Light. I am kind of scanning through the station to see what signal is coming through me from the station, and I guess maybe I'll just start there where I'm talking about, what signal means relative to the station, and in that case, what signal means relative to any participant within it, and in that case, what signal means or could mean relative to anyone. And this is kind of something that you can look at in terms of like relativity, and that this signal is relative to the constructed reality that we're in, to the stability of the reality that we are experiencing, that we are, like, if I am to give you an example, then it's the reality that I am right now living, where I am sitting outside of my place and I am recording. This is the structural reality that I am in. It has physicality, it has an expression that can be seen, an expression that can be felt, and that can be, and from there can be an interpretation of it. And technically, this is really kind of how we are already existing. I mean, everything that I'm saying here is not new, in that it is already what it is that is occurring, except that now I'm putting a focus to it in that way that I'm verbalizing the experience. And it is important, it feels important for me to do so, and for the human being to come into this way of relating to reality as a measure of standing within the sovereignty of that being. Because when we are observing, and when we are now placing ourselves from an orientation point that looks at reality as being like a medium whereby the experience can be had, that is relative to the many aspects that exist, then we can then begin to see that we have the ability to reorient ourselves and to come to a way of perceiving that same reality in a different way, and therefore experiencing it in a different way. And I believe that this is what the human being is now evolving into. We are expanding our capacity to be within our existing realities, and not just to be within them, but to participate relative to the reality, to that reality, from the stance that there is agency, that there is a way in which we can meet what is there versus what we are thinking, or what we're believing, what we are actually interpreting about it. So here I am in my reality, experiencing it firsthand. My vessel, able to experience it firsthand. I feel the armchair here, but at the same time, I am also perceiving that I am also perceiving a future reality where you are listening to these words, and I'm also too able to see that there is a part of me that also now interprets that experience as being an experience of vulnerability, and in that way that, why am I sharing all this? I'm sharing my internal perspectives here. So all of that is occurring. Like, all of that is occurring. We are constantly receiving data. We're constantly receiving signal. So when I talk about signal, and when I mention the word signal as pertaining to the station, it is simply that I am acknowledging that there is movement that is happening, and that movement could really look or be represented as an emotion. It can be represented as someone saying something to me that now is causing for me to interpret what is being said as needing to, for me to move from where I am, that I am interpreting all of the different ways in which the stability of the structure that I am in appears to now be changing and reconfiguring in this very moment. So, I created a station because I didn't create the station. The station became observable to me as an architecture, as a living architecture that anybody can come into and be able to reorient from, because the data and the information that is being relayed is such that it is, or can be understood by whoever it is that is now receiving it. Not understood in that intellectual way, but felt in that, but felt because what I do share does map back, or map reality in that way that we don't automatically do, because we have been conditioned to immediately come to a conclusion about what the reality is, about whatever situation that we're in. But within the station, kind of, when I was saying yesterday about decompresses, I don't think I went into that, but what we're experiencing here as human beings is and when we're looking at actual reality too, then it is like a compression of many different aspects, many different layers of perception, or many different aspects of perception. And it is coming to that time where, because our nervous systems are being I want to say disrupted, but I don't think disrupted is really the word for this. But our nervous systems are being triggered at this moment, and this is not to say that our nervous systems aren't always being triggered, but that our nervous systems are experiencing the contrast between that which, and I think this is something that, oh my gosh, I'm going to go back to the morning time. In the morning, I was thinking about how once I've observed or become the observer to my reality in that way that I'm seeing how conclusions themselves are structural, then what happens from there is that you're also able to see how I was also able to see how there was a mismatch between my actual reality, or when I'm looking retrospectively to past experiences, how there was a mismatch between what my experience was, or what I was expecting my experience to be, and what my actual experience was. And this is kind of helping me to expand into an orientation that is more allowing of and more open to change, and the orientation that is more open to possibility and more open to emergence. Because once you become skilled and you expand your capacity to be able to observe your own reality, to observe its patterns, to observe what it stands on, how it's built, then from there you're able to, and it's just merely from the observation standpoint, when you're able to see that, to see all of that, then you no longer are assigning the task of reality having to change in order for you to begin to have the experiences that you're wanting to have. So yeah, the station became visible to me because it is a representation of a mechanism that you can stand in, that allows for observation to occur without judgment, observation to occur from that standpoint that things do not necessarily have to be different, that there is no seeking for there to be difference, that there is a noticing of differentiation, but that there is no longer that mental seeking of things to being different than what they are, just because when you're looking at how things are, they are already complete. They're already complete. Things are already coherent, and the station kind of helps you to remember what it is that stands as a mismatch to your representation, your interpretation of reality versus what the actual reality is. I guess maybe that's like the big picture about all this. I'm at 12 minutes. Yeah, I wanted to keep the recording short, but that is, I guess, the message for the day is, maybe begin noticing, what what the internal interpretations that you're having about reality. Begin noticing if there is a contrast to what you're actually experiencing, because this is kind of where you're looking at when you're looking at what internal guidance systems, how internal guidance systems operate. They operate in that way that you no longer have to necessarily like look outside yourself for answers, but that the answers themselves represent themselves within what you are able to observe as either a match or a mismatch to the patterns that to the patterns a mismatch to what patterns that you perceived were necessary for you to have an experience, and what patterns actually exist and are in front of you. So yeah, so I'm here. I'm always open to talking to you guys, to exploring further, and that is what the station is about. It is about us working together in terms of exploring what ways in which our realities are now expanding into the emergence that is before us, in terms of how we are reconstructing our lives, and how we're reconstructing our lives collectively. But then again, you know, firsthand, how we are reconstructing our realities at that personal level. Okay, until next time.